complete some or just get some work done on the PIQs, because we know that that's a big portion of this. Before we jumped in, I did want to mention we are skipping the test section of the UC application, and that's basically because we know that the UC system as well as the CSU system is not having ACT or SAT or ACT test scores as being part of their minimum eligibility requirements. So keep that in mind. It is not information that they're going to use when they make a decision, whether you get admitted or not. It's not something that they are going to use if you decide to submit scores. If you do submit scores, it's something that they will see afterwards, after the fact, okay? So that's why, again, we're going to go ahead and skip that section. And we'll go ahead, let me share my screen.
Mr. Tedelo, can you explain, since you're talking about scores, if they decide to submit, how they will be used if they are submitted?
Yeah, so if they get submitted, they can be used for class placement. I think they still use it for scholarship as well, right? Is there something else I'm missing?
No, that's basically it. So if you do take the SAT, as we've mentioned before, it will be, if you decide to, actually it's going to be blocked off. There's not going to be an option for them to see your score when they're looking at your application. So once you are admitted, they will have access to that score, and it'll be used to place you in classes, potentially. And if you do take the SAT, there are scholarship opportunities that you have with that. Also, if you register for the SAT with the fee waiver, then you can potentially have 4 college applications that you will receive for free. So there are still some benefits in taking the SAT, but it definitely is not a requirement for the UC application.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so again, that's why we're going to be skipping that, since it's not a requirement. But if you do choose to submit your scores, that's how it will be used. So actually, can someone, or no, we'll do that afterwards. We're going to watch the tutorial on how to complete the section, and then we'll go ahead and help you guys through this part, okay? So let me know if everything is working, audio or video.
Hello and welcome to the UC Application Step-by-Step webinar series hosted by UC Santa Barbara. This workshop will detail how to demonstrate your extracurricular experience through the Activities and Awards section of the UC application. While your success inside the classroom is important, the UCs are going to look beyond your academics. Your extracurricular involvements help readers understand your unique passions, talents, and potential. The Activities and Awards section will allow you to create a comprehensive list of your various involvements throughout 9th through 12th grade if you are a freshman applicant, and after 12th if you are a transfer applicant. The UC does not have a preference between any extracurricular activities. We don't value sports over clubs, over volunteer experience, over work experience. We view them all equally. Overall, the UC is focused on 3 components of your activities. First, we are interested in your level of commitment. Activities that require more time or that you have participated in for multiple years will add more value. Next is progression. We want to see if you have worked on a particular skill or activity and are able to demonstrate growth over time. Finally, we want to see that you took advantage of leadership opportunities. Remember, leadership comes in many forms. For example, you could hold a position in a club, be a team captain, or you could be a leader in your family or your community. Leadership is the ability to demonstrate qualities such as accountability, dependability, responsibility, taking initiative, and problem solving. You can enter up to 20 activities in this section, and you're going to categorize them yourself. There may be activities that you can categorize in multiple ways, so just choose what category feels best to you. We will be really flexible, and you will not be penalized for how you categorize your activities. For example, if you are an Eagle Scout, this could be categorized under community service or extracurricular activities. Make sure that you are not duplicating any of your activities. You will list the years that you participated in each activity, and don't forget the activities that you have planned for spring semester of your senior year or your last year before transfer. The after 12th grade option is only for students who have taken a gap year after high school or for transfer students. You will also detail how much time you've spent on the activity, how many hours per week, and weeks per year. If time commitment varies throughout the year, we suggest you average your hours of involvement. Lastly, you will describe each activity and your role within that activity. With only 350 characters available for this, you should avoid using complete sentences, and you may abbreviate if necessary as long as the information is still clear. We don't necessarily need you to describe what the actual event is. We want to hear more about what your role or responsibility was within that activity. For example, you don't need to describe to me what volleyball is. Rather, tell me what you did in your role as team captain or how competitive the team was. This is also where you can tell us if you've been doing something longer than just high school. For example, if you've been playing volleyball since you were 10 years old, you can also include that in the description section. I want to give a note on the activities and awards section in regards to COVID-19. We understand that a lot of us were under very strict stay-at-home orders and a lot of things were canceled. We want to remind you that students are always evaluated within their context. We don't penalize students for what they don't have available to them. If you were able to continue activities, maybe online for example, how did that change for you and how did you adjust to that? If you did have activities that were scheduled and they got canceled, you can talk about that in the additional comments section of the UC application. I hope this information has been helpful. If questions arise about the application itself or you experience any technical difficulties, please email the UC Application Center at the email provided. If you have any questions about UC Santa Barbara, please feel free to email UCSB for me at sa.ucsb.edu. We are happy to help applicants and counselors in any way that we can. Continue watching this playlist to see more about each section of the application. Best.
Okay. Can everyone still see my screen? Yes? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Alright, awesome. So, this is a good time right now to take out your brag sheet. So I don't know where you guys have that, if it's in a folder somewhere, if it's in a file somewhere, but this is where your brag sheet is going to be very useful. So go ahead and pull that out, and then someone can also drop in the chat the link to the application just in case students need to find it. And go ahead and log in. Yes.
Can we talk about brag sheet? Because I don't know how many students actually have one, and they may not know what it is that you're referring to.
Okay, yeah. So brag sheet is it's a form. Think of it as like your high school resume. It's a place where you can allocate all the things that you've accomplished throughout your high school career. You can put in classes, AP things, volunteer stuff, test scores, and it's just a good place to have everything put together so that you're not scrambling looking for how many hours you volunteered doing this or looking for when you took this course or what your score was. It's a way for you to stay organized for these moments just like this. We're going to get into the activities and awards section, and you can look into your brag sheet and see what awards you got, when you got them, for what, any details about it. I don't know if we have a copy of it. I could probably pull it up somewhere.
In the chat, can you guys put a 1 if you have a brag sheet? Give us a 1 if you have a brag sheet.
I can't see the chat. Is it a good response?
There's only 1 student that needs it at the moment. There's 2 students that need it at the moment. 3 that need it. 4. So there's a few students that need the brag sheet.
Does anyone have that at hand? I can look for it in my drive, but I don't want to get you guys dizzy.
I can go ahead and pull it up, Mr. Tirado.
Thank you.
It should be in the CIA folder, Ms. Correa, that we use this summer. So for those people that don't have the brag sheet is still going to be very important for you to complete it, even after you have started this section of the application, because you're going to be able to use that for multiple other things. So that brag sheet is not just to help you gather the information for this application, but it's actually needed when you're going to be asking your teachers, counselors, other people to write your letters of recommendation. They're going to want to know what you did outside the classroom. And so that helps them kind of paint the picture in terms of the type of student that you are outside of the classroom. And so it's very beneficial for them to have that, for you to have it completely before you request the letter of recommendation. So if you're going to be applying to any private institutions, or if you're going to be applying for scholarships, which I'm hoping that all of you are, then you need to make it a priority to complete your brag sheet as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's used for multiple things, like we said, for the application, also for scholarships. It literally helps teachers. You're giving them the words, right? You're painting a good picture of who you are, what you've done. They probably already know you really well, but maybe they would benefit from knowing the things that you did outside of the classroom. And that way they can write a nice, good letter of recommendation. So I'll give you guys a minute to pull that up or find that, and then if we can share that in the chat when we get the chance to, that would be great. But for all of us who are ready, I just want to point out also it's right here. So when you sign in, you'll go down to activities and awards, like add activities and awards. And then you'll see this at the bottom. It asks you add an activity or don't have anything to add. Hopefully you do have something to add. You know, I just feel like this is a very underrated section in the UC application. The application as a whole is supposed to be a good reflection of who you are, not just academics, but you as a person, with PIQs involved, and then with the things that you did outside of the classroom. So you want to show them that, right? You want to take every opportunity that the application gives you to show them a different side of you. And so this is one good way to show, you know, that side of you outside of the classroom, after school, what things you were involved in. So I think this is a good summary here where it says, you've told us what you did inside the classroom, and now you have the opportunity to tell us about what you're most proud of outside of the classroom. We're looking for quality, not quantity, which means that even though you'll have room to tell us about 20 activities and awards, make sure to focus on the ones that are most important to you. So yeah, that's something to know. You can put up to 20 things, 20 different activities and awards in this section, but remember, it's not about the amount, it's not about quantity, it is about quality, okay? So focus on the ones that you're really passionate about. Focus on the ones that mean the most to you, that are most important to you. Choose experiences that demonstrate commitment, responsibility, leadership, and most of all, genuine interest. And if you were listening to the video, they're looking for 3 things in particular. They're looking for commitment, progression, and leadership. That was one section of that video. So things that you committed to, things that you were able to progress in, and then areas of leadership, you know, leadership opportunities that you took advantage of, okay? All right, so if you have activities to add, you're gonna go to add an activity or award. You're gonna click that. And it brings you to this page, okay? And it gives you here a good description of what each category is. You're going to go down here to where it says category on the drop down, and you can select which one it is. So again, you want to make sure you're focusing on the most important ones to you, the things that you're passionate about, and select where it fits best. They're not going to be very particular with what you categorize something. They will be flexible with that, as long as you put it in somewhere, right? So sometimes things are kind of caught between volunteering and extracurricular, you know, sometimes it's kind of a toss-up. So it's just wherever you feel it's best, it fits best. And up here, if you're still a little confused, they give you some descriptions of what each one is to kind of help you best categorize it. But there is no real wrong answer. But we'll go through each one just so you can see what it looks like. So if you have an award or some type of honor or something like that, You click that and it's going to look like this. Okay, it's going to ask you what's the name of the award, right? So this is where you reference your brag sheet if you have that, and why it's so important to have this part completed. You're going to write down the name of the award. It's going to ask you the level of recognition, right? So is this a school thing, a statewide thing, a national recognition? Gives you some options there. The type of award, right? Is this an academic thing or non-academic? And it gives you some examples for each. It'll ask you, when did you receive it? Okay. So again, reminder, this section of the UC application, they only really care about 9th through 12th grade. If you've been doing a particular sport beyond that, that's great. That's awesome. You can probably include that in a different section. But for right now, they only want to see 9th through 12th. Okay. So you'll click whichever one it applies to. And then it asks, what are the eligibility requirements of this award or honor? So here, and then the example is, how are award recipients chosen? How many people are selected to receive the award? Is there an application or nomination for the award? So right here, you want to talk about the award and you want to give them details, right? Like, I was top 5 out of, the whole school in this. That's why I got the award. Out of my whole team, it was the whole team voted on this particular award. So you want to give them details and context as to how this award was awarded to you. Okay. You do have 250 character limit here, so keep that in mind when you're typing this out. And if you do have your brag sheet there, you probably have a little blurb on that. So make sure that it does fit the 250 characters before you copy and paste. And then it also asks, what did you do to achieve this award or honor? So what was the accomplishment for it, basically, right? We'd like to understand what it took on your part to achieve this award. For instance, were there multiple competitions that you had to participate in? How much time did you dedicate to winning this award? So with these things, there's a lot of details. There's a lot of context that goes with it. Don't overlook those steps. You want to really give them a good picture as to why you got this award and why it was important and special. And on this part, you have 350 characters.
So for any of these sections, something that is very important to keep in mind, because you have those characters, is that you are not going to be writing complete sentences. You're going to do a lot of phrases. So a lot of commas, so if you're describing an activity that you did, that you organize, you say organize, you use the word organize, A, B, and C, coordinated A, B, and C, plan A, B, and C, participated in A, B, and C, okay? So it's very important that you remember that it's very limited on characters. And so you are not going to do any complete sentences. You are going to do phrases.
Yeah, another thing I want to emphasize on this section is they gave a really good example in the video. If your award was for volleyball, don't talk about volleyball. Like, we know what volleyball is, and we don't really need to hear that. We want to hear about you. Like, why was it that you got this particular award? Avoid describing the event. Describe your role, your responsibility. Things like that, okay? Don't talk about the sport or the event, but tell us.
So can you scroll up? I want to see what the top looks like.
Sure. All the way?
Yes. Okay, so there's a question, what section do I put hackathon? So right now you're in the section of activities/awards. Can you scroll down? So after this, once you fill this out and you go into the next one, it's going to give you an option that says activities. And then you just plug it in there.
So this is for
So it gives you the drop-down menu here, so you select what that's going to be. So if it's an extracurricular activity, you click on extracurricular activity, which will be the one that you're mentioning. The brag sheet is on the link that I just put. There's a link that I added on the chat, so you should be able to click on that link. For those of you that are already on the link, make sure that you save it to your file so that you don't complete this one form. Okay, you have to save it to your file. That's very important. Okay, good. I see more people logged into the brag sheet form that I shared. So you want to make sure that you save it into your Google Drive if you have Google, or you could save it into your. Can I show them how to do that, Mr. Tirado?
Yeah, you want to share your screen?
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of you that are here. I see that you added yourself. So you're gonna go where it says file. Okay, you're gonna go to where it says make a copy, and then you're gonna select whatever file you wanna send it to. Okay, so you're gonna send it to yourself. If you don't have a Gmail, then you're gonna go file and you're gonna download, and you're gonna download it as a Microsoft Word document, and then like that you're able to save it into your desktop or into your computer. Okay, but you wanna make sure that you save this. You don't start typing in here. Okay, you have to make a copy, save it into your G Drive, or download it into Microsoft and then save it that way. So your robotics is gonna go in extracurricular activities. So just like Mr. Tirado showed, when you click on the drop down menu, you're just gonna click extracurricular activity, so it will be classified as an extracurricular activity. And the one right underneath Mr. Tirado.
Oh yeah, I was in it. Yeah, so right here is where you would put in the name of the activity, which you did, right?
What you did, which is very, very important. So
and then ask you a couple of. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so what you did is not the mission of the club, it's not the mission of robotics, it's not the mission of all the members, it's your particular mission. Like, what did you accomplish in robotics? That's the part that you want to keep in mind.
What was your role? Yeah, what was your specific accomplishment? Yep. They asked a few other things. When did you participate in the activity? And then how much time did you spend on the activity? The brag sheet has this out for you guys as well, but if not, you're going to have to do a little bit of calculating. So remember, this is an estimate. They don't want exact, but they do want you to be as accurate as you could be. So how many hours spent per week, and then how many weeks per year did you do this activity? Yeah, remember, this is under extracurricular activities, okay? That's what that one looks like. I skipped one. I'll go ahead and show you guys what it looks like. Educational Preparation Program, okay? What is the name of the program? Guess what, guys? If you are an EAOP, where is it? There it is. You can put down EAOP, okay? It's right there. But if you're in other programs, go ahead and mention them as well. If they're listed here. And then briefly describe the program. So think about the program's main focus, your experience, and what you accomplished and learned while participating in the program. Again, 350 characters. Again, when did you participate in the program? If you're in the AOP, more than likely it's been more than just a few years, right? How much time did you spend in the program, going to the meetings, and how many weeks per year? That's for that one. And then let's look at volunteer and community service. Volunteer and community service will ask you these questions. Oh, where'd it go? Okay. What's the name of the organization, right? Where did you volunteer? What program was it? The name will go there. And then describe the organization or program, school, or group. Consider what kind of work your organization does, what's the reason your organization exists today, and how does it help a certain community or population. And again, what did you do? And with this one, it's very similar to what we were saying before. Here you talk about the program, but when it says what did you do, the emphasis is on the you. What was your specific role? What did you do within this organization? How did you take advantage of this opportunity? Think about your experience and what you accomplished and learned while volunteering. We'd also like to know if you've held a leadership role. So if you held a leadership role within this is a good place to put that down. Being a mentor to others, acting as a point of person, or being in charge of something or of a specific task, taking a lead role in an organization or project or event. That will go in there. And again, when did you do that and how much time was spent? And then work experience, because a job also counts. Okay, it also counts for this. So where did you work? With the name of your employer or where you worked. Describe the company where you worked. Consider the industry, the size of the company or organization, or its main focus. Your specific job title and what your responsibilities were, right? What were you in charge of? What did you do? And when did you work? And then the last question is if you are currently still working there. Now I skipped one. There's another one, other coursework. Okay. If it's already in your academic history, then it doesn't belong here. Okay. This is other coursework that maybe perhaps not get included in that. You'll put the name here. Briefly describe the course, what program or school offered this course. Also think about describing the major themes of the topics the course covered, as well as what knowledge or skills you learned. And the same basic questions, when did you take it? How much time you spent there? Giving just estimates. And so you can put up to 20 of them in there if you have that many. Make sure you save and continue when you complete them here down at the bottom. And that's basically this section. Are there any questions? Let me look at the chat.
There is a question. So what type of recognition is the AP Scholar Award? AP Scholar Award should fall under award or honor.
I think so.
Yes, so what's the name of the award or honor, level of recognition? AP is a national program. So Ms. Sanchez, since you are our expert, an expert.
So typically the students in the past, and I'm just thinking of the past, the students never really had to reflect this level of award. So let me explain why. But you could definitely list it in here if you want the person reading it to take a second look. So let me explain. When students list in the application that they have taken 3 or more AP courses, so you list the 3 courses that you took, the 3 AP tests, and you list your AP score. Typically, when students have passed 3 or more exams, they are considered AP scholars, so that will automatically give you those additional points in the evaluation process, if that makes sense. But if you want to list it here It is a national program, so you can list it as national, but it is going to be, so it's gonna be a combination of the national plus school base, because the statistics are gonna be based on school numbers, if that makes sense, right? So once they look at stats, they're gonna be looking at how many students from Rio Mesa High School are AP scholars. So they're gonna say, the top 5% were able to make it into becoming AP scholars. So for this purpose, you could put it as national, but when you list your 3 AP classes with your 3 AP scores, automatically you will be considered an AP scholar, and so that will be automatically taken into account in the evaluation process. Make sense? So let me know if that makes sense.
So essentially, Ms. Sanchez, what you're advising is if they would like to report it, they can report it, but it's not necessarily adding anything else. If you already listed the AP exam, you're already getting that recognition. So adding it will just reiterate it, but it's not new information that you're providing.
Right, it will not be new information. So if you have more than 20 activities that you want to list, and so then that will be the part to think about, do you really want to use extra space? So if you don't have 20 activities to list, then it's not going to hurt you in any way. But if you have more than 20, then you do need to evaluate what's new information that they're going to learn more things about myself. So that's going to depend from student to student, depending on the number of activities that you did. If there was an activity that you participated in your freshman, sophomore year, but then you were not able to participate last year because of COVID, you still want to list it, but in the description, you want to indicate the reason why you were not able to continue with it. So that's going to be very, very important that you indicate, was it that it was no longer offered, it was never accessible to you? Because that's going to provide context as of, okay, yeah, I didn't want to just continue with it. It was actually not offered. I couldn't continue with it for A, B, and C reasons. So if you were involved in any club, any sport, any extracurricular activity that was not in a classroom, and you were not able to continue with it, and you had plans to continue on that activity, but that changed because of COVID, then you do want to indicate that in this section. And that's why there's no room for sentences, there's only room for phrases, okay? If right now you don't know how to phrase the phrase, don't worry about it. We are still, just like I said yesterday, we have enough time that you have one of us to be able to come back and look at your descriptions and be able to tell you how you can make it what it needs to be. If you find yourself that it's better for you to do it on Word, right? So you write, or maybe on the brag sheet, right? You write your description on the brag sheet, and it's easier to go back and edit. So that's something that's why having the brag sheet is so beneficial, because you are able to do your edits there, and in the final piece, whatever is going to be ready to go, you just copy and paste it into the application. So that's why we have students do the brag sheet in advance.
You just reminded me of something too, Ms. Sanchez. Guys, don't forget to include things that you plan on doing spring of your senior year. That's also something that you should be including in this section.
Any questions? I don't see any questions in the chat.
They're probably adding information in.
Yeah.
Which is great.
It's something that I just want to reiterate again. We are available to meet with you all. I see these descriptions of your extracurriculars as a craft, right? It does take some type of skill, and so you want to make sure that we're reviewing what you're writing to double check that you're putting your best foot forward, right? That because you have limited characters, you don't want to waste space sharing information that isn't going to be adding, right, to that context, to your story. So absolutely check in with us. We're here to support you. We're not going to judge you if it's not perfect. We don't expect your application to be perfect, right? That's why our job is to help you with it. So definitely reach out for us, make appointments with us. For those of you at Rio Mesa, stop by the College and Career Center. Like I mentioned before, you guys are already ahead of the game by joining these workshops and getting started. feel free to ask questions, right? You all are more than open to unmute yourself and ask, okay, what would be a description for this? Or how do I write this, right? This is what our time to workshop. And if you have that question, most likely someone else has that question as well, right? Maybe you want to showcase your leadership skills in your soccer team, right? Maybe you weren't team captain, but you were in charge of coordinating like team outings, or maybe your job was to collect money to make sure you guys had water for your games and practices. So okay, great. So we have a question coming in the chat. Question is, so if we plan on joining a sport in the spring, do we list it as well? Yes, you would list it as well. You want to make sure that you make a point that you will be joining that in the spring. And again, that's a good time for you to say, maybe you were planning to join that last spring, right? And you would have had this experience. So it's a time for you to say, you know, this is a sport I was looking forward to. And, you know, due to, you know, the global pandemic, we were all going through this, right? You can say, unfortunately, I wasn't able to join. So yeah, absolutely, you can add that information.
Now, just make sure that when you do put that down, you do follow through with that. We want to be honest when we reflect what we're putting down in our applications.
So the question is, what would we write in the what did you do section if we're including something we plan to join in the spring? So that's where you can list and state, you know, I am planning to join this in the spring. If this was something you were planning to, you know, do in the past, then you can mention that too, right? You can provide information. You can provide information about maybe the reason why, which everyone knows, but there's also, I know some sports started opening up, but not everyone either had access to vaccinations or there's just different reasons. So again, this is an opportunity for you to give context and insight so that everyone understands, you know, what your situation was like, what your limitations were like.
Someone asked a question. I'm in junior ROTC and did community service through it. Would those be two separate activities or one? I would put that down as one, just kind of be, put it, you know, you can decide where you want to put it, but I think that counts as one thing.
Yeah, I would list it also as one. The reason being, so don't think I'm going to list 20 different extracurriculars. Or for example, for those of you that are in Paq Club and you're doing multiple and various volunteer hours, right? That's all within Paq Club. Even though it's different, like maybe you did a beach cleanup and then you did like a food share 1 week and so on. So in the end, the way the colleges will see it is, how many hours total did you do? Does that make sense? So it's not about the amount of extracurriculars you have, it's about the quality of it, right? If you have, 20 extracurriculars, but for those extracurriculars, you only committed 1 hour per extracurricular total, right? Compared to only having one extracurricular and you had consistency, then that's going to look different. And again, this goes back to making sure that the way you're writing about this and that you are representing and showcasing it on your application, that, you know, this is where that craft comes in. It's like, okay, are you trying to just add things because you think that's what the colleges want to see, or, right, are you using your space wisely? And so what would be wise is just do it as one, right? Do it as one because it's quality over quantity.
There's another question here that I'll open up to the rest as well, but the question is, are awards really important to the UC? I don't think I've received any. So the way I would respond to that is just keep in mind that this is one section of the UC application. If you don't have anything, that's okay. These are all just opportunities to showcase parts of you and who you are. not one thing is a deciding factor in you getting into the UC. It goes back to the holistic review. It goes back to them kind of seeing this as one big whole picture, and not really having one particular thing be a deciding factor. So if you don't have anything, that's okay. Focus on the things that you do have. It's just going to be information that they're not going to see. So also keep in mind that there are no negative points when it comes to how they review your application. There's only positive points and neutral points. So yeah, if you don't have anything to write down, I would encourage you to think about that though. Just make sure you're not overlooking something. But that's how I'd respond to that. Anyone else want to jump in on that?
Can I share my screen, Mr. Tirado?
Yes.
So in the UCs, for those of you that came to CRA, you might remember some of this. For those of you that did not attend summer event, CRA this summer, then this will be new. And I will put this form on the chat so you could review it later. So the UC system has a process called comprehensive review to look at students' applications. Okay, so through that, they look at 13 specific factors from the application to determine if you could be admitted into the university. And those are the ones listed here. Okay, so don't panic over one item because they're going to be looking at multiple items to be able to make the decision on whether you are going to be the good candidate in, for that particular campus or not. So that should be the determining factor. A lot of students were concerned about UCs not using SAT and ACTs because they thought, that was going to be my way in. Well, SATs and ACTs were just one of the factors. All of the other factors stand. So there's many other things that you could put in your application that will still make you shine and still make you competitive to the university. So the fact that you don't have one thing does not make you someone that could not be admitted into the institution. So it's very important for you to know that, okay? Having said that, when you are selecting your applications, you do want to select your applications, broadly. So you want to be thinking of my competitive schools, my somewhat competitive schools, and then my backup schools, the schools that I know that I'm meeting, the minimum. You want to be able to not just apply to the competitive schools because that's going to close the gap in terms of the chance to being admitted, and that's going to be the case for every single student, okay? So you want to make sure that you're doing your research as you're looking at what uses you're going to be clicking to select in this application. You really want to invest that time to research the institution. One, is it a good fit for you? Do they have programs that you find interesting? Sometimes students select schools just based on the name or based on what their friends said, but they end up being not the right fit. They end up not having the programs that they're interested in. So there's multiple things that you want to be looking at, but in terms of selection, they do have those 14 factors that you want to be familiar with, and so that you understand how the selection process takes place. All of the UCs have a point system. The point system depends and varies from UC to UC, so they don't have the same point system. But within that point system, they're going to be looking at these 13 factors to determine whether you're going to be admitted or not. So some of the factors in some schools are going to have more value than others, but the same factors will be taken into account to determine whether you could be admitted or not to that institution. Okay, so I hope that makes sense and gives you a little bit of peace of mind.
All right, well, it's 5:50. I think we should move on to PIQs and at least touch base with that a little bit.
I'm just going to interrupt you real quick because I want to make sure we address this to the whole group. There was a question about babysitting or childcare being considered an extracurricular. Absolutely. If you have, responsibilities at home, such as taking care of younger siblings, that is an extracurricular activity. I know some of you have the role of having, to help your younger siblings, take care of them while parents are working, tutor them as well. So that can count as an extracurricular activity.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I think a lot of students don't think that counts, but it does. I got booted out. Let me log back in.
So on the chat, as Mr. Tirado is getting ready to show you the screen, I put in the PAQ questions. So if you don't have access to them, then you have the form. You can just save it on your desktop, and you have the questions accessible to you at all times.
Okay, I'm back in. Alright, so for the PIQs, the personal insight questions, we'll go here. Personal insight questions, we'll look at the introduction. Okay. The personal insight questions are about getting to know you better. So this section of the application, you have to think of it as an interview. I'm sure the UC system would love to interview every person individually, but this is kind of their way of doing that. They've heard about your academics, they've heard about what you did outside of the classroom. Now they want to get to know you as a person, and so this is an opportunity to kind of showcase that part about you. These are really good, and to keep in mind, a few tips. Present your information and ideas in a focused, thoughtful manner. Making a list of accomplishments, activities, awards, or work will lessen the impact of your words. Use specific, concrete examples to support the points that you want to make. Focus your examples on the present and near past. Tell us about yourself. We want to know about your personal triumphs or challenges, leadership opportunities, and experiences outside of the classroom. I think this one's big too. Use your own voice. Your answers should reflect your ideas written by you alone. Use I statements and my statements in your response. I think that's big because we are so trained to write stories, to write essays, to use colorful language, and to not talk about ourselves, right? Because it sounds conceited. Well, in this case, you need to retrain your mind and talk about things that you did, about your experiences, how it made you feel, your description of, the perspective of whatever was going on. And the last one, try to relax. There are many pieces of information we consider in reviewing your application, and admissions decision will not be based on your responses alone. So again, going back to the comprehensive review, that not one thing is going to be a deciding factor. This is just one slice of the pie, okay? So let's hit continue. And here are the 8 questions. So if you scroll down, you'll see 8 questions. Remember, you do not have to answer all 8. You're going to select 4 out of the 8 that you will be responding to. All right. If you've already been working on these, then take these last couple minutes to maybe continue working on them. If you're first looking at this, like if this is the first time ever, a good starting point right now is just reading them. Reading each question, understanding the question, and then seeing if you would have a response to it. Okay? Just familiarize yourself with these 8 questions and narrow it down to 4. Okay? Try and maybe select which 4 you would have a response for. So you do have a word limit here, okay? 350 words. And again, you only need to respond to 4 of them. I do strongly recommend that you use Word or you use something else so that you can copy and paste your final draft in here. And I strongly recommend, if you're here, then you should be sending your PIQ draft to us, to an English teacher, to someone, but it should be reviewed a few times before you submit them, okay? What should we do here, guys? Should we go through each one? Or how do we take this time? I'm not sure.
since we are limited on time, what you all can do is look through the questions, and again, keep in mind, right? There's not one question that's more valuable than the other one. It's not like UCLA likes for everyone to answer number 6, right? It's whatever question is going to allow you to share information about you, right? The context that you're coming. Sorry, can you guys get the airplane?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm in LA, so I know the struggle. So lost my train of thought. There's not going to be a particular question that's going to have more value, right? It's about which question is going to allow you to showcase who you are, right, and your content. I did want to touch on something in the tips, which was use your own voice. Oftentimes, I see students and they're talking like we're living in the 1800s. They're like thus, and I don't know what other language was like. You use that on your everyday. There's sometimes where there's words that I'm like, wait, I don't even know what that means. Like, I have to have my dictionary. And so if it gets to a point where someone needs to pull up a dictionary to know what you're saying, right? Again, it's an interview. It's an interview. They're not looking to see, ooh, vocabulary. This is 12th grade vocabulary. Great job. Extra points. That's not the purpose. The purpose is for you to use your authentic voice. Obviously, you're not going to be super colloquial and you're not going to be saying like, hey, dude, and y'all. And, there still needs to be some form of neutral language, right? Because the people reading these applications have different backgrounds, right? So it can be teachers, counselors, alumni, different ages as well. So you want to make sure again that you're, when you are speaking on these PIQs, number one, it's something that can be understood universally. No, is that even a word?
Universally, yeah.
Universally. But everyone knows what you're saying. So don't feel like anyone is judging how you're speaking. And although they don't, right, you're not getting dock points for, missing a comma or spelling errors. Just keep in mind that does help, right? So you can be understood. That helps with communication. Rules of grammar exist for a reason. So that's why it's important for someone to spell check, reread your PIQs, and to make sure that, when someone is reading it, that your point is going across. So again, there is a craft to it. Check in with us, right? We're not here to judge anyone. We're not here. We're not even the ones that will be admitting you to the campus, but we are the ones that can say, okay, so familiar with your application. We know the process, so we'll say, okay, you're repeating things that you've mentioned or that I can see in academics, so maybe you're missing out on something else, right? And so and I feel like for this application, that's what's time consuming is your college site coordinator knowing your story, right? So that we can make sure you're representing yourself on that application. So the more information you provide to us, and you all will notice that if you meet with us, we'll ask you questions, and it's because we want to get to know your story and your context, because we're technically able to interview you in person, and now we're going to help you put that interview on the application. So does that make sense? Hopefully I'm making sense.
You do. One last thing for those of you that are having a hard time thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to write about myself. We're going to have a PAQ workshop on October 2nd. That's going to be mainly only PIQ, and that's going to be the place we're going to be able to give you more specific information in terms of, show, don't tell, like all these specific things that you have to be taken into account. So put it in your calendar now. We're going to be sending you the Zoom link. So it's going to be on a Saturday, October 2nd from 9 to 11. So that should be a day for you to come in with your questions, questions about, I got stuck here and there. As you look at the questions, don't select the easiest questions. They tend to be the most difficult ones. A lot of students select, let me see. Let me look at these questions. Question number 6. That is a very famous question, but in my opinion, it's a very difficult question to prove. Because it says, think about an academic subject that inspires you. And you will say, oh, I took chemistry. It was so inspiring. Okay, so tell me more. I didn't do anything else. I just took the class. It was inspiring. Well, that's not enough content for them to accept you into the university. You have to have done something within chemistry outside of the classroom for you to prove to them how inspiring it was. And if you did nothing beyond taking a class, then that is a wrong question to select. Okay, so you have to really think about, in this interview, what questions can I actually answer with proof? Because you have to show proof. You can't just say, I'm a leader without proving that you are a leader. You have to prove everything that you say. Okay, you have to have evidence. For those of you in mock trial, evidence. So that's important for you guys. But mark your calendar, October 2nd from 9 to 11. We are going to go over all the specific things that we just mentioned.
So what you all should be doing now is start working on these drafts, continue to work on the brag sheet, have something. October, November, that's when we're really, you all can make one-on-one appointments and we can help you through the application now.
She freeze.
Yeah,
what she was saying was to go ahead and work on them now, but remember that you have support, you have us, you can make an appointment. I actually do recommend that you at least talk about these first. That kind of helps you narrow down, which ones you can write on, because if you have a lot to say about a particular question, then you have a lot, you would have a better response. So maybe make an appointment with your college site coordinator and discuss these things, and then get your draft going. But yes, definitely October 2nd, Ms. Sanchez? You're muted. I think you said yes, though. So October 2nd, circle that. That is a day that we can definitely get into the nitty-gritty of this stuff, the nuts and bolts, because there's a lot to say for each question. Like, I look at each question, and, I see where students' pitfalls, the same one, number 6, academic subject that inspires you. They miss the word inspire, and they tell me how good they are at math. And they're not really talking about the inspiration. Like, if you're inspired by something, you're doing something outside of the classroom. So proof of all this. So keep that date in mind, and I believe, let me just touch on this before we go to the additional comments. We talked about this before, but, well, let me slow down. Okay, so this is a section that is supposed to kind of be, in case there wasn't anything in the application that wasn't covered, or you didn't get an opportunity to share something in a different section of the application, this is where it would be. Remember, the application is pretty thorough, right? It talks about academics, it talks about what you did with your free time, it talks about who you are as a person. But if, for whatever reason, this one thing or whatever didn't fit anywhere else, this is a good place to put that. And we talked about this before. One thing that you guys should be putting here, at least I know for Pacifica and most of OUHSD, the fact that there's certain AP classes that were pulled, right? That's something that is valuable to them, that gives them a better picture when it comes to context, right? It's not that you didn't want to take AP chemistry, it's that my school pulled it and they were not offering it to me, right? So that helps them better understand your situation. So things like that is what would go in this additional comment section. This is not a place to beg. This is not a place to say, pretty please, I know I'll do great here. This is a place to add facts, right? To add information. Not to say how much, you've always dreamt about going to UCLA. It's meant to give them further information, right? They want as much information about you as possible. And if there's something that didn't get covered, this is a good place to put it. Okay, cool. Other than that, do not hit submit. You don't want to hit submit because then it is irreversible. You guys are ahead of the game here. It is a good time to be working on these things. So don't feel pressure that you have to be completed, by next week or anything like that. You guys have a lot of time, and you're doing great. You're on pace. So take your time with this and make appointments with us if you need further assistance. And yeah, is there anything else that anyone else wanted to add before we end? No? Okay. Then thank you guys so much. There will be further application workshops. You will be seeing that on our Instagram. You'll be seeing that, I'm sure, through your Google Classrooms or however you get in touch with your college site coordinator. But for this week, we're done. Thank you so much. We appreciate your guys' time and dedication to this. And we'll see you guys later.